and I added it.
That was the most boring one. Why'd you read that?
That was the first one I saw in the chat, so I just read it, and I didn't get
Charles,
to read anything
you
else.
fell over.
What the heck happened?
Oh.
Oh, now you're headless and you fell over.
No, I'm not. Why is it turning this way? Okay, I'm headless.
That's better.
You're back.
It looks like you're trying to
doing it
hide
live
your...
now.
Your level
You're
again.
supposed to
Trying
do
hide
this
your
before
identity.
we went live. Gosh, Charles.
Well, Ryan...
What is happening
We're in
here?
pre-show right now. This is okay.
Oh, I guess that
This
is
is pre-show. This is
pre-show
pre-show
for us. is
Until
real
the
show.
finger rolls, it's all off record.
That's right.
Wait.
It's still on YouTube. That's the only...
It's not on the
No,
internet
it's off
anywhere.
the record. Don't worry about it.
Like, yeah. Yeah. There we go.
But yeah. Let's see. Privacy predictions. Cisco warrant. Oh, there's the one that Ryan and I joked about, but nobody's gonna. I'm not gonna say that on the record. I'll get canceled.
We don't have time for it anyways.
Is that all?
There's not enough time for that joke. We'll just say that.
Yeah, there's no time for that joke.
How's everybody's weekend? Anyone do anything fun? I did.
I went to the races.
That's right, Ryan. How was it?
I'm sorry. Is that
Yeah,
cars, horses, like what?
Right. Like,
Sporting cars.
Pigs?
I was in Daytona.
Okay.
What kind of sporting cars? You gotta be
Sporting sports
IMSA.
cars.
like. Do they just turn
IMSA,
right
yeah.
cars? Like that's
No,
not
these are road course cars
Ooh.
that race for 24 hours.
Oh, it's a 24-hour
Straight.
long. That's pretty gnarly.
That's where I was.
At Daytona.
Nice.
It was at Daytona.
How
And I had
was
a
did anybody
great
crash?
time.
Anybody crash?
There's always some
Yeah.
crashes.
What? Did anybody crash?
Well, I don't know.
question
Like,
is
oh
that?
my god,
That's like being like, were any security events logged all weekend?
no. You know that's a no, right? Come on.
Is there? You look in your sim, it's like 0 events collected in the last 24 hours. You're
Yeah.
like, we're hacked. We're done.
It was the weekend. They took the days off. There's no hacks.
There was no
Finally.
hacks.
No hacks.
Finally.
What? No hacks.
I mean, hacking on the weekend is cringe, as the kids would say.
You never threat hunt on a Friday. Everybody knows that. You don't. You do all your documentation. You finish it up. You submit it. You don't look at logs on Fridays.
And that's why we have a
Somebody-
rule: no hacking on Fridays.
no hacking on Fridays, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Somebody
don't
tell
test
teams
anything.
yeah. Teams was down on Friday. That was
Oh,
that
dude,
was
that
fun. I
was
thought
a
that
little
was
that
fun.
was.
It was
I
pretty. It
heard
was the
Teams
old
was
school.
down today also.
Maybe for you, or maybe you just have
Nah,
advanced
I work
persistent
here.
teams.
Or advanced persistent ham.
Advanced persistent ham. Yeah, that's me.
APH.
APH.
Up.
But where's the beef?
I don't know. That's another podcaster.
Oh no.
Alex, what'd you do? That was so fun.
You ran the Trace Labs Search Party CTF.
What? I had no clue.
Oh.
I'm not in that Discord at all. Maybe I should join
Yeah,
it.
right.
What is it?
Well, yeah. So the Tracelabs CTF is we're using convergent volunteers in order to use open source intelligence to help law enforcement find leads for missing person. We kind of now, while it is gamified, that's just the vehicle for like the important mission of just generating intelligence, and there's a lot of stuff that can be found out there.
Right.
I think that's my quick elevator pitch on the spot. But yeah, that was fun. I would say like went off without a hitch, but it's like I'm the behind the scenes guy, so it's like there's always something, but nothing extreme, and it's just hey, we evolve and move forward. So there's certainly some things that we're going to note, new tools, techniques. We're going to be able to talk to some tool makers and vendors and say, hey, this needs to be clarified because it's like our teams really found some stuff to use with your tool.
That's fun stuff. Corey and I know nothing about that, so
Yeah.
don't
We've
ask
never
me.
competed in any of
You
those
never
events.
competed. You never won an
Never.
award from it.
Never.
No,
Never.
definitely not.
Yeah.
Are we ready to get this started? Oh, we lost BST.
No, you
Should
didn't.
we?
Oh, he's just
Getting,
shy.
I'm shy and feeling great.
We can
Nah,
see
but-
you with the Discord.
Yeah,
I know.
Don't dox yourself, man. Like,
No, I ain't gonna dox myself. That's nuts. But no, you know what?
Don't dox yourself.
Cut off the monitor. Let's go.
Oh, that's
Do it live. Do
That's
it live.
right, baby. Woo!
Where's your teleprompter?
Oh, you just turned it off.
You turned off your teleprompter. How are you going to know what to
No.
say?
Yeah.
I just read whatever people say in Discord. I don't actually have any sort of filter or anything.
Are you ready, Corey? Or
Yeah,
advanced
roll,
Yeah,
ham?
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm
Advanced
ready. Here we go.
All right, here we go.
Hello and welcome to Black Hills Information Security's Talkin Bout News. It's January 29th, 2024, and there was no security events over the weekend. Definitely the SEC did not confirm they got SIM swapped. Fortra doesn't have any auth bypasses. There's no Tesla hacks. There's no election-related security things happening. None of that's happening. It's all really relaxed, and so we're just going to sit here and chat about various recipes for doughs and other baked goods.
This is fine. This is fine.
It's fine.
This,
We've got a illustrious cast.
this is fine.
We've got this illustrious cast. I'm going to go backwards. We've got Andrew joining us from a remote place on the internet with a dog bed.
But he broke the internet.
He broke it,
Oh.
but he's
Backwards.
backwards.
The internet
Why
is
are you
backwards.
mirrored, Andrew?
Are you mirrored? That's you're not allowed to be mirrored on this show. It's illegal.
I don't know why it's mirrored. Actually, like I use a.
You got to do it in the settings before you.
It's in the
come
settings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a restream thing. It likes to default everybody to mirrored.
We've
Whoops.
got
Whoa.
Kelly. We've got Ryan. He's. I can't. This is hard. I can't. I'm scared. I'm
I'm getting
scared.
dizzy.
We've got Ryan, who's actually currently gunning for the character
Here.
size limit in Restream. He's got
Yeah, I'm
2
over the
pipes.
limit.
Is that a Unix command? Like, you can't pipe something to BHIS Talking About News, can you?
I have no idea.
You definitely can.
It's
There's
part
probably
of our title, so I just put that there. But here we go. This is what's important.
Our Discord pipes
Stella.
things to Talking About News all the time.
Stella.
All right, I need to zoom out. It's too much of me.
We've got Kelly. We don't know if she's added any new books, but there's a Twitter for that if you want to follow it.
Welcome.
It's hard to tell, but there may be some new books or may
There
not.
might be.
I'm counting. Just hold it here real quick. 1, 2, 3. Oh, no.
We've got Charles joining us without a teleprompter. He's coming
Without a
to us live.
teleprompter. Live
Old.
for the
Old
infosec
move.
news. Got my little wrestlers in the back. I'm all over the place.
I saw there was. It
camera
looks like a
action.
fight happening in the background.
It looks like
Yeah,
the
it's Rumble
Rock'em
It's Royal
Sock'em
Rumble.
robots have been cloning themselves.
Yeah, I got all kinds of wild stuff.
Self-replicating Rock'em Sock'em robots.
That's right.
We've got Alex joining us with the Purple Team Platypus shirt. A rare, you don't see that one a lot. That's
This
a
one's
rare
awesome.
shirt.
It's got all that synthwave vibes too. So
Yep.
love it.
Mm.
We've got Wade.
Oh, hello there.
Who's here?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. All caps all the time. Haven't had a coffee today. A good cup of coffee, so I'm a little bit low. But I am
Wow.
here. I'm ready to go.
Aw.
Everyone told me that I was too quiet, but now I'm not. And
How
Now you're
how
good to
can
go.
you do this show with no coffee? That seems illegal.
oh my god, it is so
Aw,
hard. I can
hey,
feel
Wade.
my energy level like dissipate as I talk. It's like from my head down. It's really interesting.
It's okay, Wade. I didn't have any coffee either. So
I have 0 caffeine. Like I've
Yes.
given up.
You guys
Wow.
are crazy.
It's a journey.
Oh my
It's a
goodness,
journey.
this show is
Yeah.
like
Like I got this stuff.
Wow.
Is it
That's
Lent?
awesome.
the caffeine-free crew.
That's just
We've got Mike
caffeinated water.
in an unknown state of caffeination. I'm
like.
scared.
I'd like to point out Mike's
Mike,
like background is always like the epitome of like hacker background, right? Like it's like this is the exactly what I would think every computer security expert's office should look
True.
like.
Very true. It's like half prepper,
There you
half
go.
like cybersecurity books.
Absolutely what mine looks like. Everything is like that, just off screen. So
Yeah, I'm off. This is a mess.
Caffeinated, that was earlier today. I think I'm hitting the point where I need that 3rd cup of coffee, or is it number 4?
See, that's the level I expect. I'm scared of I'm scared of the non-caffeinated people. Although I do respect you, and I've tried it. I read this book about caffeine, and I was like, I can't do caffeine. And then I was like, no, I need caffeine. So that's where we're at.
Why did the non-caffeinated people scare you?
And it's just your raw dog in life. You gotta have something on.
You ever try to read blogs without caffeine? It is very hard.
Non-caffeinated people don't scare me. Happy, full of energy, non-caffeinated people. That scares me because it makes me wonder what else they're on.
Hence what we're seeing here, a bunch of nice people with lots of things to say and big smiles, and none of them are caffeinated.
Yeah, but you guys have met me in person. The energy is not different on video. It's the same.
That's true. But
you can make a mint by bottling that energy up and selling it to people.
Oh, I would take it. In a heartbeat.
All right, let's get into some. Let's cause some drama. No, I'm just kidding. That's not the goal. So no one will probably be surprised by this, but SEC confirmed over the weekend or I guess last week, that their X account, which was hacked in a sort of very obvious cryptocurrency scam, was a SIM swapping attack. Who would have thought?
Wow.
Yeah.
Doesn't I'm gonna call it Twitter because I'm a rebel. Doesn't Twitter have the option of not you? I guess you have to. Do you need a swim swap? Like I know you can do token based, right? Like that's what I have on mine. And
can you though? Because I feel like they may have gutted all the security features. At one point, their SMS wasn't working at all.
It still requires me to use token based, and I don't even tweet. I just go in there to read other people's tweets.
Well, okay,
I noticed
hold
this
on.
for, like,
it's the SEC. Why would they set up any kind of secure MFA technique?
Right.
They had it, and then they asked for it to be removed for troubleshooting, and this is where takeaway change control policies. That if you're sort of like, hey, we're going to open up this gaping security hole here, let's go back and make sure that it's remediated after things. And this happens all the times in organizations too, to where they say, hey, could you just we want to confirm that that's not the problem, could you just turn that off please? And it's like, okay, but we really 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 need to make sure that it is turned back on, because I've had those days where it's like, oh wait, nobody turned that back on, how long has it been like that?
So are you saying that X turned it off for troubleshooting, or are you saying that their account, they turned it off for troubleshooting? X turned it
off. They asked X to turn it off because they were having trouble logging in, and X turned it in their article. So it's like, hey,
what they don't say is the time frame, because I would maybe speculate that happened roughly in January 2015, and they never turned it back on. I mean, I don't know, but yeah.
So here's the thing, right? And this is, I wouldn't be surprised if this happens a lot more, especially with the introduction of eSIMs. eSIMs, of course, is just more so really just an embedded SIM. It's all digital.
So what would you use an eSIM for? Give a little background on it.
So you would use it. eSIMs just eliminate the process of having a physical SIM to swap to different networks, to different carriers, right? Started in 2019. That's when they started introducing eSIMs into phones. The first iPhone to have eSIMs introduced to it was the iPhone 14, where it's 100% eSIM. There's no more physical SIMs, and you can have up to 8 eSIM networks on your phone. So I'm just gonna break it here. That's kind of the research.
I don't think there's really any security implications with eSIMs, are there? What would make this attack either easier or harder?
So with eSIMs, the thing is with eSIMs, it does have its own proprietary operating system and file system that's embedded on the firmware. So if an attacker can gain access to it, because the way it works is with the eSIM, that's how your phone authenticates to the actual, say a T-Mobile or a Sprint or whatnot. It uses an authentication token, which is encrypted, to connect to the back end to your carrier from the eSIM.
Right, but there were no details in this that it said anything about whether it was eSIMs. I from my understanding,
it just says SIMs in this one. But
yeah, well, when we're talking about SIM swapping attacks, for anyone that doesn't know what that attack is, it's basically someone social engineers the cell carrier themselves to just port the number to another phone. So whether it's an eSIM or a physical SIM or any kind of SIM, all that matters is it's a social engineering attack that targets the carrier themselves. It's a pretty common attack. Usually it's done in batches by threat actors. There's a really interesting Darknet Diaries about it.
Absolutely. I know that one, and it is fascinating to listen to.
Did anybody?
So basically, the security fail from the SEC X account is that they had SMS-based authentication as their MFA factor instead of either a hardware token or people asked about Google Authenticator. Google Authenticator is not vulnerable to a SIM swap attack. There's a whole separate thing of like vulnerabilities with implementing MFA and TOTPs. And like, as an example, if you back up your tokens, those can be stolen or whatever. But essentially, basically, it's pure software. It's essentially on the carrier side. Typically, they will run into a carrier store, grab a tablet that's authorized as a manager, and then they'll just swap a bunch at some price, usually $5,000 to $25,000 a piece. So this is not a cheap attack. Clearly, the attackers in this case either had access to that to do it for cheaper or thought they could make more than that amount of money on this fraud. So it is ironic, the timing of it. I think this is one of those cases of like, I don't know if anyone's had this moment on pen testing where like you have really good opportunity and you just waste it. Because I definitely think if you have access to the SEC Twitter and this is all you get, I feel like you wasted the opportunity. But
the amount of trolling that could have been done could have been higher. But that's just me, right? That
they tweeted something.
The world down, not for any money.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, all they did was tweet something a day early. That was it.
Yeah.
That like they did nothing, basically. I guess you could argue, securities fraud maybe leading the market by a day, but only leading it by a day, like it's not the jig is up. It's not that.
It's not a big deal. Yeah.
They should have tweeted out like, "Here's our coin, get SEC coin," and then it's like minting an NFT. It should have been like way more. But anyway, don't use SMS or any other cell phone based mechanism for authentication for MFA. Like, just don't do it.
So most of these like social media accounts though are all like social media people, right? Usually ran offside. And what's the most proper way to handle that like MFA ability for those companies though? Like,
I would say almost any
they store them all in
password
manager. Yeah, you just store the password manager and
any password manager can store a TOTP. You just delegate access to whoever needs it.
I just feel so scared storing both of those in the same spot. Right?
Why?
Like,
it's less scary than storing some cell phone in Bill's basement that if someone steals it, then
it's definitely true. But how many people have you like where they've logged in and they just use their same password for their computer for that password storage?
Dude, it's still better
that's my first,
if you're on someone's
it's an
computer.
Step, but yeah.
It's also to get into secure storage, you probably have MFA that's actually not SMS based, right? So I mean, again, like secure like layers and security and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, this is great proof of why it's not that they hacked the SEC's password manager. It's that they SIM swapped the SEC, which the biggest thing is there's no way to defend against this from the carrier side. You have to defend against it from the auth configuration side. Like from a security perspective, you have to assume that your number can be SIM swapped. Like there's no way around that. You can't be like, "Hey carrier, please don't SIM swap my number." Like that's not how it works. So
and what some carriers are starting to do now is you have to before you can even activate your SIM, you have to have a user ID in person.
Yeah, it's done on the carrier side. So it's not like social engineering of a target. It's like the carriers are against it and have their own pins or other security mechanisms. But at the end of the day, people do get new cell phones and they do it thousands of times a day. So it's a pretty it's like running code on an endpoint. It's a required feature for people to be able to do their jobs. So anyway, let's talk about let's talk about some 0 days. Does anyone have anything of particular interest to them? Some CVEs? There's new gates. We got MavenGate.
Go over that one. That one sounds cool. I didn't read any of these, so
got to throw some gates in there. Everything's got to be something gate, as we know. This is actually podcast gate right now. So MavenGate, this is an article from thehackernews.com, which I've never heard of, but let's hope it's legit. It says it's the #1 trusted cybersecurity news platform, so it has to be real. Basically, this is an Android thing. Access to projects can be hijacked through domain name purchases. This is something we've kind of talked about on the show, which is like supply chain of development-related packages. Of like The supply chain often involves a lot of Node.js or other like upstream dependencies that can be hijacked. So that's kind of what this is about. Mobile security firm. Let's see who disclosed this. Oversecured. The original analysis we can link. Basically, they said that Gradle and other Maven-based technologies are vulnerable to the attack. Sent reports to more than 200 companies, including Google, Facebook, Signal, Amazon, and others. So yeah, I guess this is a Java thing. For those that switched away from Java after Log4j, I guess you made the right decision. But yeah, it's a crazy thing to imagine that an attacker could just register a domain and then take over an entire software package. But I mean, we've seen expired domains get abused many times in the past. But
I mean, this isn't a new thing, and it's not necessarily specific to Java. I think all of the package managers have kind of suffered from something like this over the last like 2 to 3 years.
True.
So really the answer is to get, and it calls it out in the article, the answer is to get projects like SigStore and like signing into these packages so you actually can trust that the build was signed by the actual package creator and not just by some random person on the internet. And until we actually get those things into these larger open source repositories of packages, we're just going to see this over and over again. It's going to be Groundhog Day.
Yes. So Andrew, out of curiosity, are there like tools, like obviously managing these dependencies and signing in keys and all that stuff is probably a heavy lift for most developers. Like, are you aware of any, or does your company provide like tools that make it easier to like have secure development, like life cycles or whatever of like, supply chain stuff?
And so at Datadog, we're big fans of the update framework or the tough project. But, when you say it's a heavy lift for somebody to manage the keys and put signing into their project, that's actually kind of the point of the SigStore project, is that if you don't want to manage all that stuff on your own, Google actually kind of has an entry-level tier where you can just trust Google to manage the keys for you, which isn't perfect, right? Because you have to trust somebody, but at least then you're putting package signing into your project using something like SigStore. And there's a ton of other stuff out there in the software supply chain ecosystem. So today there's really no excuse. The problem is these package repositories, they have to move at kind of this glacial pace to be able to support the number of clients that consume packages from them. So for them to say all of a sudden, hey, we're going to start supporting signing, that's a big deal. For them to say everybody that's consuming packages from these, now all of a sudden all the clients validate those signatures, that's like a 10-year roadmap.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the supply chain is vulnerable until it's updated, not only on the package creator side, but also on the client side. If I have some Jenkins build that's been running for 10 years, I have to go in there and add in the whole like signatures and where to get them and where to validate them and all that good stuff.
Correct. And unless you're actually verifying those as part of your deploy process, there's actually no point in even having the signatures.
Right. I'm like, yeah.
Yep. Has to do its diligence, and then you as a consumer of those packages also have to do your diligence. And I think that's something that we've raised a lot of awareness for in the cloud native communities, but in just like general software development, I still think that this is something that is probably used by very few on the daily.
Oh yeah, we talked about it last week. You can just publish malware straight into PyPy, and there's no big deal.
There's
no problem.
Yeah.
Yep. So
it gives us something to write about.
As long as you put Gate on it, it's big deal. That's how it works.
So Gate is the key word out of all of this.
Yes. Whatever you're going to do, you got to put Gate on it. Gate, okay. That's coming soon. That's honestly a great name. If you're a hacker, if you're like a budding hacker that's trying to come up with a good handle, Gate is a good one. So definitely go for that. There's some Fortra GoAnywhere authentication.
You just got to call it Gate, and then everybody else will add the second gate, so it becomes Gate.
Or Gate Thrasher.
So your hacking name is Gate, and then when you get hacked, it becomes Gate. Is that how it works?
Exactly.
Okay.
Gate's Fate. I don't know.
Okay, so there's Fortra GoAnywhere, and I feel like I've lost track of all the companies that Fortra owns. Was this a Citrix product? Like who? What was GoAnywhere like a month ago?
Is this a new story?
No, it's in the
What's
letter.
in there? Here, I'll throw it in the chat
Fortra
for you.
warns of critical GoAnywhere MFT bypass. But apparently now was this Citrix? Like, what used to be GoAnywhere? I forget.
I'm Googling that as we speak.
GoAnywhere was Citrix, wasn't it?
Wasn't it?
PC
I
anywhere?
thought it was.
I'm not
Maybe
seeing that,
I don't know. Or yeah, maybe it was PC Anywhere. I don't know. But basically, the long and short of it is, they've posted a security advisory for their own product. There's a CVE for it. It allows an unauthenticated attacker to create an administrative user for the application. Researchers discovered this in late 2023. This is a file transfer application, which we know from last year that is a big target for companies, for threat actors, and companies need to really secure this quickly. It is Java, so that's fun. But basically, the endpoint can be deleted and the service restarted to mitigate the issue. So there is a workaround that doesn't require patching if you can't patch, but you can also patch. So if you use Fortra GoAnywhere, definitely you should remediate right now. If you're listening to this and you use this product, pause right now and go remove that line and restart the server.
Who's got a Shodan? Who's got a good Shodan account? Someone scan real quick and tell us.
That's a good question. That's one of the things for almost any end day. They always talk about the number of servers affected on Shodan. So yeah, someone pull up those numbers while I BS about things for 5 minutes.
I bought the lifetime Shodan account a long time ago, and then just it fell off my radar, and I haven't used it in a long time.
I use it all the time.
Well, I don't have to. I'm
You use Wade's account all the time?
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Wade. I really appreciate that.
So the password is gate.
Yeah.
Someone 12 RZA in Discord said too poor for Shodan. What Wade's talking about is, I think about every year they have a lifetime account sale, and it's like $30 or $50. It's a cheap one-time fee. You don't need the fancy account with vulnerability searching and all that other stuff. Just get the cheap account and it's good enough.
There's also it for $1.
Yeah, there's also a ton of other providers of similar data. Let me provide a list because I'm building a webcast for this week. FOFA, Census, Quake, Hunter, ZoomEye, Netlist, and Criminal IP.
Census is pretty good. I've used Census as well. Quick fun fact. Shodan used to host servers at the data center I worked at. And boy, did we get a bunch of complaints every single day.
Takedowns,
about, oh, do not scan me. You have hosts scanning me. I'm like, all right, here's our boilerplate email. And then they would ask to be removed from the list. And we'd usually pass it on. And then be like,
when they email that, you should respond with, we've been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty. We're so glad you got it. Thank you for emailing. Let's talk about your car's extended warranty. All right, let's talk about Tesla. So we all know and love Pwn2Own, which is a sort of bounty-based hacking festival, I want to call it, conference. But basically, they had a kind of special version of it, Pwn2Own Automotive Edition 2024. Some researchers hacked a Tesla modem and collected awards of $722,500 on day one. And then there was a bunch more stuff. It looks like there's some companies like Synactive are chaining 0 days to get root permissions on a Tesla modem. There's some Ubiquiti Connect EV station, which is I guess automotive related. It's a charger. So yeah, I mean, basically this is a cool place where what gray hat or white hat hackers can go and collect seemingly large payouts for hacking stuff, which especially makes sense for stuff like Tesla's, where, if you want to get into hacking Windows, I got a VM you can download for free. If you want to get into hacking Teslas, you might have to spend some money or do something very unethical. So I think these are cool
DEF CON still has.
Yes.
I think Teslas are still at DEF CON for the car.
Yes, but it's stupid. So. You wait in line for 2 hours and you get 30 minutes with it.
Okay.
So it's
you complete your scan and that's about it.
You complete your scan and then someone else's turn. So I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not stupid. It's not really stupid. But my point is, if you're truly a researcher trying to deep dive on this kind of stuff, you're going to need more than 30 minutes to find a 0-day that pays out for 700K.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think it's just a good thing. I wonder, does anyone know of the other Pwn2Owns? Other than, I know there's like the main one, which is mostly focused on like Windows and other like high profile stuff. But is there like a Pwn2Own for general IoT, or is there one for SCADA? I don't know. There's probably a lot.
So Corey, to go back, perhaps we should just wait till the next big deep freeze, because remember in Chicago a couple weeks ago, the Teslas couldn't be charged. So all you have to do is wait for a deep freeze in Chicago or in the Midwest, and then you can go and test them.
But won't they just be turned off because the batteries are dead?
But you're a hacker. You should be able to get around that.
You plug it.
You're like, just take a heat gun, point it at the temperature sensor. Oh, my car works. Hacked.
Is anybody else, like the first thing reading this? I just think about that movie, the Leave the World Behind or whatever, that came out on Netflix last month, right? Where the dude's driving down and all of a sudden there's like a pile of Teslas and they're like, oh, wow, this is weird. And then here comes another Tesla and they're like, we better get out of the road. Like, when I thought that, I'm like, oh my God, if that happened, that would be so cool. But that's probably a bad thing to think. But
I mean,
it was a cool stunt hack, right?
People in Discord are saying, rent a Tesla at Hertz. You're like, would I need the extended warranty? Yes. Can I have the extended? I would like to opt for the extended warranty. Does it cover hacking by chance?
Put tape over all the cameras so they can't see you like doing stuff around the car. Like, hey, all the cameras turned off at the same time. What happened? Like,
did you drive into a Faraday cage?
I thought Hertz was getting rid of all their Teslas.
Well, maybe, but I mean,
didn't they?
Whatever.
One of the rental car companies like heavily invested, thinking that they were going to come out with automated driving like real quick.
Yeah, we didn't cover it, but I did see an article that basically they have maintenance, supply chain, and other like cost issues where like they don't break as often, but when they break in catastrophic ways, and there's not an easy pathway to getting them fixed.
And people who rent cars, they treat them very gently.
Usually, yeah.
Boy, do I have some stories about that.
So, Corey, to go back to your question, it appears that they pick a theme for the year because they've been doing this since 2007. One year they focused on web browsers, another year they focused on virtual machines. So it seems like they pick a particular topic as opposed to different flavors of conferences.
That makes sense. So it's like this year it was automotive. So that's good stuff. I mean, we all know automotive security is pretty bad in general. So, and high cost of entry. It's a very good target. Does anyone know where it was? Did anyone pick that up? Toronto.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Toronto.
I feel like cars are getting so advanced too, even with just like the collision detection and stuff like that. Like I have a 2022 Subaru, and is it a 2022? Yeah, I think it's a 2020, and it has like the lane change. Like it won't let you change lanes; it'll fight against you. I couldn't imagine if like somehow that got hacked, right? Like something simple where all of a sudden it won't allow you to change lanes. But
do you remember the article we talked about a long time ago where there was a certain model of Mazda that if a radio station bricked like everyone's infotainment systems on accident?
That was a good one.
Yeah.
They sent the wrong image file to everybody.
Wrong image file, and it bricked like 30,000 Mazdas because like over the radio. But anyway.
This goes all the way back to 2015, though, when they hacked the first sets of Chrysler cars by pivoting into the CAN bus from the Sprint network. A lot of these things just never were intended to be internet exposed. And not to bring it all the way back to the supply chain thing, but there's actually now a framework that's based on the same Sigstore and Uptane framework. It's called, what's called Uptane. It's Sigstore and Tough for cars. So that if the firmware has been tampered with via the CAN bus because it's unsigned, and then the car is just bricked. So
so if you want to get that extra 50 horsepower, be very careful.
Well, and then you start running into the hacks like that, but you also start wondering with that sort of security level, what about right to repair on it? I mean, we know that fight's going on also, people not being able to repair their own vehicles because of all this new technology tossed into it.
Oh, it goes beyond that. It's also, think about all the manufacturers that have intentionally defrauded emissions regulations over the years.
Dude.
Like it's tough. It's like you almost need like a 3-way verification process between like the manufacturer needs to vet their own stuff against the EPA or whatever, and then like the users have to vet it against the manufacturer, and then then you get right to repair in there, and like that's a tough. We need like a government commission of like 5 different. It'll be a disaster no matter what happens. Let's just gonna say that.
It is also sadly the same now for tractors.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, tractors
that's
are
a bit more
tractors,
expensive, right? Like, like the tractor stuff was crazy. My dad is a big rig repairman and like semi trucks, right? And there's a lot of stuff around semi truck hacking, and that one I dived into for a while to understand all the aspects of that, because usually those trucks can be completely remote controlled by whoever owns the truck. And since they're so highly regulated, like you can only drive so many hours a day, you only have this heavy of a load, that there is a lot of room around that to manipulate a bunch of different settings to get past those, as well as fraud to allow them to keep driving to make more money. Because a lot of the times they're getting paid based upon per load, how quickly they get there and stuff like that. But the semi trucks and tractor hacking stuff is so cool. I wish I could dive into that more.
Yeah, that's a scary world. Maybe next year will be Pwn2Own Farm Edition. It'll be like tractors and stuff.
To make matters worse, some of those manufacturers are actually starting to standardize on running Kubernetes at the edge as a means of deployment of that car firmware. So, have like an ASIC on a CAN bus somewhere that's running a dedicated firmware that's signed. You have a K3S cluster that's running in the car, or the tractor, or I don't know, maybe a fighter jet.
If I'm ever driving and something pops up that says Kubernetes, I'm pulling over. Like,
oh, you didn't hear that Boeing's new airplane is being ran completely by Kubernetes. Whole thing, just all Kubernetes.
I mean, I don't know if I find it more terrifying or more comforting to know that they're standardizing on at least a platform that we can defend. But my brain goes back and forth on is this an improvement, or does it actually detract from security overall?
True. Yeah, I mean it's a tough thing, and then you get into OTA updates and all the stuff and supply chain. Yeah, it's enough for a whole separate podcast. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
So apparently swatting is never going away, which I still don't really understand how this is a problem. Like, I guess it's a problem because law enforcement's job is to fire up the tank and drive through someone's wall. But like, how is this still a thing? So the news is basically the election cybersecurity director was a victim of swatting in her home. CISA's Jen Easterly. This happened last month, which is super scary. For those who don't know what swatting is, essentially, I guess I would call it a social engineering attack, but essentially...
We've got a description right here. What is swatting?
It bust into your house with big guns and scared the bejesus out of you. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's a good summary. Yeah. Or if you want, Ryan, we can just all sit in silence for 30 seconds while people read.
Read it out loud for everybody.
You know this is a podcast, right, Ryan? But yeah, like essentially swatting is... someone doxes a target, meaning they figure out their legitimate real address where they actually live, where they sleep. And then they essentially call the law enforcement for that locality and say, hey, I'm taking hostages in this house, or they're, basically they call a fake scenario into, targeting this house. And then it essentially relies on the overeager or whatever you want to call it result of that call, which is that people break down doors, they bust in windows, there's flashbangs, it gets really dangerous really quickly because from all sides, no one knows what's going on. The person who's been swatted doesn't know that they've been swatted. The SWAT team doesn't know if there's legitimately a hostage situation or not. And yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, and these social engineers or these adversaries are banking on that like gap in law enforcement criteria where, sometimes they may, use force first, ask questions later because they have this spun up. So it's, absolutely that the adversaries are, hoping for a violent situation to occur, not just scaring you, but hoping that there's that violence that comes.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as, and this will tie into our next story, but like, I think as far as the fix for it, I mean, what is the fix? The fix is like getting if you're a high enough profile person, which I guess you make that determination for yourself, get in touch with your local law enforcement and say, just so you know, I might be the target of this.
Like there's been countless times where people have still done that, or they've been swatted multiple times and the cops keep showing up, right? Like at that point, it's more on the cops than it is on anyone else.
And because it's not like I can just call the cops and say, hey, I need a get out of jail free card. Like, you know what I mean? Like, from the perspective of law enforcement, they shouldn't just be handing out, hostage situation. Like, here, you can take hostages at your house. We'll never come. Like,
now I just imagine random people calling like the cops, being like, "Hey, I'm a big Twitch streamer, right? If you get any 911 calls or any type of weird calls about my house, just ignore them, Just
exactly. So there's not really a great solution. Honestly, I guess the only solution is privacy, and this gets into a deep rabbit hole on how do you secure that information from yourself? How do you make sure no one knows your real address? It's actually really sad, but like a lot of the streamers, they just move every month. They just literally they move houses every month because they know that it's going to happen eventually, that something is going to leak their real address, and that someone is going to target it. So like if you're really that high profile, it's incredibly sad, but you are moving on a regular basis to avoid this attack. So it's it's a sad thing. I think, from a privacy perspective, we won't get into how to protect that information, but the big one is just know your attack surface, assume that someone can get your address, and then hope that no one has a problem with you. But it's like a lot of people live in constant fear of this because there's not really a way around it. It just is what it is. So the next article I want to talk about, because it kind of ties in, is the Ring. This is sort of an update. So previously on the show, we talked about how Ring, meaning Amazon Ring or whatever, the video doorbell service, had essentially no or very little protections for law enforcement to gather people's information and watch their live footage. That was a privacy concern when it first came out, and now it looks like it's being rolled back. So Ring said on Wednesday that they're going to sunset the whole request for assistance tool, which allows police departments and other public safety agencies to request and receive video captured by the doorbell through the Ring's Neighbors app. So,
and I know one of the things that's buried in this story, because you look at the headlines, you look at that first thing going, oh, they're not going to give law enforcement the information anymore. No, they still will with a warrant. It's just they're not doing these warrantless things. Like it is buried in there that they will still comply with warrants. I think like the third to last paragraph, it's like they can still access them using a search warrant. Which then begs the question is like, why were you just disclosing this when they're like, hey, there's an emergency, again, kind of tying to that extingent or emergency circumstances.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here and go for it, as I usually do. There was a couple murders in San Diego, and within a week or so, they were able to catch the guy because of this. I can see both sides of it being like a security professional, but when
it took them a couple weeks, then they could do
that time. I'm saying if time was of the essence, right? Like, I could see them wanting it, but at the end of the day, it's the whole if you surrender your privacy, you're kind of screwed. But,
I mean, honestly, you could definitely argue that even with a purely positive spin on this, it's still risky because, as we know from the various emergency situations, the one I'm thinking of specifically is, what is it, Charlie Hebdo or whatever, the French case where they were doing a terrorist attack on the journalists' offices, and people were tweeting out the journalists' locations in real time, and that terrorists were using that information. Basically where I'm going with this is that misinterpreting or misusing information in real time is very possible. You could be law enforcement looking at a live video feed and think you just saw someone with a gun and then run out to the front yard and gun someone down. And really it was just someone grabbing a package from the front porch or whatever. It's the chances for abuse of real-time information, whether it's intentional or unintentional, I think are really high of we pulled all the feeds and someone ran through their backyard 2 days ago. It's okay, well, what? Maybe that was just their kid running around. Maybe it was I don't know. It's going through the due process of getting warrants and all that good stuff makes sense to me. It's you should take time to synthesize the information and not use it in immediately real time of right now we need to see what's happening out front of this house, because I think that information is just too easy to abuse or misuse, even if it's unintentional.
It's like in Batman, the what is it? The Dark Knight Batman, where he makes the phone repeaters give him visuals of everywhere. Does anybody else remember that? No, just me?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, I'm making sure that was the right one.
Yeah,
and then at least he destroys it at the end of it. But that's always my thought. I like to at least look a little bit positive and think people are going to use it for the right thing. But I know better.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's going to be judges signing things that probably shouldn't have been signed, and that's fine. That's like, we have a way of dealing with that. I think it's just when there's literally no verification, it's so much more ripe for abuse. Like, the other thing you could talk about is that, like, the whole ex-spouse or that kind of scenario, like just being a law enforcement person, going on the Ring page and saying, I need to see my ex-wife's front door right now, and there's no vetting or other like data tracking or any of that. Like, essentially, no judge is going to sign a warrant that says, yeah, you need to see your ex-wife's doorbell camera. But if the form is there and they just submit the information, then that's so much easier. It's like it's like John always talks about with the data information requests. If you just select other and then just submit it, it's just like, it just bypasses the entire process. So anyone have any articles? What do you want to talk about other than news?
There was this super interesting massive Kubernetes misconfiguration.
Back to Kubernetes.
I don't think that we've seen the net impact of it yet, because it's the same thing as authenticated users in Active Directory, where, if you have a multi-forest trust or bidirectional trust between two domains, that trust is transitive.
Is this the one, Andrew?
That is the one. And basically every Kubernetes cluster that was provisioned by Google as like a managed cluster for some time allowed authentication to like literally anyone inside of Google Cloud due to this misconfig, because the scope is just called authenticated or system authenticated. And really, folks just thought that meant authenticated inside of their own, like in the context of their own tenant. But really, it meant all of Google Cloud.
So you're saying if I had a Google Cloud and I somehow got network access to someone else's GKE, I could have gathered things I shouldn't have been able to gather?
You don't have to have network access, because the beauty is that these APIs deploy internet accessible by default.
So basically someone who knew about this and enumerated them all from the internet could have a ton of information, which is why we're basically waiting for the other shoe to drop on what they could have, whether someone evil actually gathered this or not.
Correct. So this was reported by Orca, and it's actually like one of these vulnerabilities now that has a name and everything, but like really it's just a big fat misconfig mistake that propagated and propagated and propagated. And I think we're going to see this more with managed infrastructure.
Google Kubernetes Gate is what they're calling.
We'll never. No, it's called. The name is sysall. Sys::all. I guess is that correct?
It's not a gate. We don't care. Get it off.
Yeah, it should be sysall gate.
That's the permission as it's described today, but it's really the same as system authenticated, or if you're an AD fan, the authenticated users group, which I think a lot of people see authenticated users on the Active Directory side, and they think it means only their domain, but it means their domain and anything else that their domain trusts.
Including the guest users I added to your tenant when I was in there last time.
Correct. So this problem just crops up over and over, that we're bad at naming groups and having people understand the impact of that.
Yeah, interesting. So people in chat were talking about the Moab, the mother of all breaches. This is one that crossed my personal radar as the data breach, sad person at Black Hills. Basically, this, to me, I don't have an actual copy of the Moab breach. But looking at discussions online and looking at what other people are saying, it seems like it's just a repackage of old breaches. There's nothing confirmed out there that says there's any new information in this breach. So it's essentially, for those too lazy to download 2,000 individual breaches, you can just download one, I guess. But yeah, it's nothing crazy, nothing new. From a privacy perspective, if you're already handling things with like, have I been pwned or other sites? There's probably nothing new in there. I wouldn't be too concerned about it. Probably can just move on and pretend like it never happened.
In news that surprised no one, the NSA is buying everybody's data. I feel like
I just want to be able to sell my own data. Wasn't there a bill for this where it's like you could monetize? Or no, we made it up on the podcast.
We made it
like,
up, yeah.
There's got to be like an eBay where I can be like, I'll give out all my Google search history for like bidders. Like I'm open to bidding. How much is someone going to pay for that?
It's I threw it in chat too. I don't know. We talk about this all the time that like most of the time the governments don't need to spy on us, right? That they can just buy this data.
Right.
And this is just proof of that. It's nothing. I wouldn't say it's anything too crazy, but it's more of just a repeat of us yelling this to the world over and over.
I'm not worried about the NSA. I'm worried about the other governments buying our data.
That's a good point.
Well, yeah, they all share. We know. I mean, I think it's kind of, I guess more than anything, it exposes like someone, Maurelius414 says, why does the NSA need to buy our data when they should already have it? Like, it's kind of like, is it just government inefficiencies of like, well, you see,
it's just easier.
It's just easier because we buy it from a company who bought it from us and then repackaged it in JSON and ours was in CSV. So we buy it from them because it's easier than us redoing our data schema.
It's more along the lines of they buy it from them because they don't have to go through all the red tape to go ahead and say, exactly. Oh, we need this data.
And Chucky, I'm glad you brought that up. That the NSA and the systems around it are designed with a purpose. There are constraints, there are hurdles, there are requirements set up by Congress on how the NSA is supposed to treat U.S. citizens' data. Yeah, there's times where I don't work there. I don't know what they do, but there's reasons why they would buy the data. And in a way, I'm glad that there are those constraints, but if I was on the other side of the fence, not on the governance side, but on the red teaming side, I'd absolutely go and buy data instead of waiting for months or possibly years to get that through official channels.
I will say, like looking at the article, they specifically call out NetFlow data. And I feel like this is one of those very powerful situations of like, is this like the ultimate NordVPN ad? Is that what this is? Like, is that
then
what
they're like,
is?
It's actually NordVPN selling the data.
They're like, it's actually, oh God. I mean, yeah. So for those that don't know, NetFlow data is essentially, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a blue teamer, but NetFlow data is essentially like IP port data stream, right? Like it doesn't have any enrichment as far like it's
maybe bytes out sometimes, maybe a domain, but not usually like subdomains.
Right.
It's literally
pretty
bare
minimal,
bones, right? It's minimal. Yeah. From there, you usually have to do reconnaissance on like what service would use that port. What do we know about this IP? What do we know about this domain? And you have to tie it together with other logs.
So they're using it because it's easier to just buy than it is to collect. And yeah, it's powerful at scale, like Graham says in Discord. NetFlow, you can get high level and for those wondering, your ISP is absolutely collecting your NetFlow. That's the whole thing about, use a VPN, blah, blah, blah. But it's just a matter of the NSA, what is their goal with this? I mean, the senator happens to be from my great state of Oregon says that they're using it to gather information on targets being used outside and inside the United States. It seems like mostly they're going for outside the United States, which tracks with the NSA's overall mission, which is to, be the nation state hackers that we all wish we could be. But I mean, the inside the US thing is an interesting one of like, I don't think their primary goal is to gather Americans' data, but if you're going after this data, you're going to be purchasing it in wide swaths. You're going to be saying, give me the NetFlow for AT&T or whatever for all of these, from this data center or from this entire swath of the country. So it's not like your data is not going to be collateral damage in that request or that data set.
But the same is true. The same is true as if they collect the data on their own as opposed to buying it. They're going to, and that was part of the whole problem since 9/11 was that they were getting all this extra data in. If I remember the news stories correctly, they were getting everything in, and Congress finally said, "No, you cannot go ahead and do this again."
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would say like they probably anyone who's ever onboarded a SOC is probably like, man, it's hard to get NetFlow from every endpoint, so we'll just buy it from the ISP.
And let's not forget. Let me just add on one other thing quick here, Corey. Remember back with 9/11, and we had the Patriot Act, and I noticed in the comments we were talking about Snowden as well. Remember when the Patriot Act came into existence, we were collecting everything, we were storing it. Since then, we've sort of pulled back on what we collect. U.S. organizations and agencies, and we still haven't found that sweet spot of how much to collect, how much not to collect, and I would like to vote for a federal privacy law, but that'll be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. All right, now we're going to start the GRC podcast, talking about GRC.
Talking about GRC. Yeah, as some astute observers on LinkedIn have pointed out, the one of the upshots of this article is that this is theoretically illegal or unconstitutional or bad, and that's why it was released by the senator, because he's going after the agencies and also the companies that are selling it. So it's kind of should be a dual mix, dual purpose thing of like on both sides. It shouldn't really be possible without a warrant. But I mean, it is what it is. I guess the one thing I want to talk about before we move on is like, where can I buy a SOC that just like sketchily purchases NetFlow data from like?
Do you want the SOC to purchase the NetFlow data and then look at your NetFlow?
Like I don't want to give
they don't hook up to anything. They just ask, all right, give us the internet service provider of this company. Give us all of their NetFlow logs.
It's the laziest ever onboarding procedure for a SOC. You're just like, we're not going to deploy anything. I'm going to tell you right now, that is the normal SOC. At least the SOCs I've worked at, that is like, okay, don't give us your endpoint detection. Don't give us that. Just give us your NetFlow data, and we'll just send you trash alerts on the NetFlow data all the time. Like, I don't know how many times I've alerted on outbound Dropbox traffic and then asking people, like, hey, do you allow Dropbox? And they're like, no. I'm like, all right, well, here you go. You got Drop. Like, that was like majority of my job, like entry level. I despise NetFlow. I understand the power. I despise those. Like, I just think it's the lowest effort option.
Is.
It's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to be a SOC for you, and all I'm going to do is go purchase your NetFlow from data brokers and then tell you when you have alerts.
That is... Maybe we have a business pitch. What was...
All right. This is patented or something. No one steal this idea.
I do want to say one thing. We see so many pictures of the NSA. Like that. If you pull up the article real quick, Ryan, like I've seen this picture like a million times. When's the NSA going to get a parking structure? Like, look at all these freaking...
It's so bad. Let's talk about single density parking. I mean,
it's like
such a waste of space.
Do they have underground parking? We don't know about it. I could easily see that. But
I don't know, but actually, you could argue it's a national
security risk. They probably have a facility that's underneath it that you can't really like build that much on top of. Like that may just be a parking lot that's
okay. But still, I could use satellite imagery to get the VINs of everyone that's parking at the NSA. Anyway,
there's a tunnel to the White House.
It's a long tunnel. All right, last article. Let's talk about the privacy predictions by. I don't know how to say it. I'm going to say Kaspersky. If that's not how you say it, I'm sorry. So Kaspersky has made some predictions on privacy for 2024. And so as we do on this show, we're going to review them and see if they're full of crap or not, which usually they are. Usually they're written by AI. But yeah, let's see.
What if it was written by AI? Would it reference AI as a problem?
Yes. 100%. That would be all it would want to talk about.
All it would talk about.
Yep. This article is a joke. I do think it's written by AI, and I don't mean any disrespect to the authors. There's nothing new in this article. Where we've already, if we look at the data points in that article, we've already defined private data. We've done that with GDPR. We've done it with state privacy law and state data breach laws. AI-enabled wearables might start a new debate on privacy.
Well, okay, hold on. So one of the predictions they make is they say the EU might push through legislative that would add biometric information to, and also I guess that like facial processing. So I guess right now, Kelly, is facial data in part of GDPR at all, or is that defined, like meaning like a picture of my face or anything like that?
I don't know if it's called out specifically with facial features, but it's indirect, it's implied. Because remember, GDPR says privacy is a fundamental human right. So I believe that it's already in GDPR.
Gotcha. So basically, even if they do pass a law that says facial data is part of GDPR, it's kind of moot because in the intention of the law, it's the same.
Yes.
AI-enabled wearables, yeah, I don't even... Can we talk about what that would even be? I mean, we talked about cars having a ChatGPT button. What is an AI-enabled wearable? This has been a thing forever, right? Isn't all of our Apple Watches AI-enabled? And like, I don't know.
The data's probably going back to one of those data brokers who AI enables it to put it to JSON to sell it to the NSA. That's what I'm guessing.
But the data from an AI-enabled wearable would be hilarious. It's like he sat on the couch and ate Doritos for 25 minutes. Like, what is that even going to be? Like, I don't even know what that's going to be.
Yeah, so they talk in there about always having a camera or a microphone in front of you. But I dare say if you go out of your house, you already have a camera pointed on you with surveillance in cities and villages. I was at a conference this weekend, and as many times as the conference organizers said, please don't record this video, they did it anyway. So I think we already live in a surveillance state.
Yeah, and
this is definitely...
glasses that have cameras in them, and it's like you had the Google Glass. I think Meta has like glasses now that
the
can
Ray-Bans or whatever.
The red Ray-Bans, like that's been a thing.
I mean, I gotta say, this is the most AI written part of the article. I think the notion that people would walk around with something that's somehow more dangerous than a smartphone is just the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like an AI enabled pin, like. Just put the phone in your pocket. What? I don't even know. Whatever. Yeah. Anyway.
Do people use pins still?
Well, it's magnetic, so.
Oh,
I guess
I was thinking like a writing.
No, AI-enabled pin, as in literally a pin you wear on your shirt. That's AI-enabled.
Okay.
Hello,
it's
my
like
name is.
Hi AI. Can you give me a recipe for waffles or something? Like I don't know.
As long as I can press it and makes the Star Trek note, like okay.
Oh,
I see. Baby up, Scotty.
I'm sorry. As a large language model, I can't make changes to the physical world. Your API key's expired.
Your API.
Yeah, so they talk about AR and VR, development. I don't think this is new. I mean, they talk about Apple Vision Pro being launched soon, which might. But
what's our take on YouTube videos then in public, right? Like,
from a courtesy perspective?
From a courtesy perspective, or like a privacy perspective, like Kelly was talking about, like if your face is part of GDPR, right, and you're taking a YouTube video of somebody's face, or you're taking a YouTube video in public and there's people walking by, technically you're allowed to film in public, but now you have the data of their face on it, which is, for me now, I'm getting like crazy confused with all that. Like, are they allowed to tell me, no, you can't film me? Which then brings me up, if anybody was on Reddit this past week, of a dude filming himself playing piano, and then these people came by and told him, hey, we don't want you to film us. We are watching you. You can't use this on YouTube, right? Is that... hopefully I'm not just rambling.
I mean, this is an old debate, though. This is the same thing. It's like, if you're in public, do you have any reasonable right to privacy? The answer is basically no.
No. Okay.
So if you're in an airport and someone's playing in a piano, then, I mean, I guess the moral of the story is, if you're cheating on your wife, don't go out in public.
Don't speed.
Or play the piano.
Don't speed through a
or if you're, I don't think this is new. I mean, again, we are kind of tearing this apart. So let's keep going. Leaked passwords will give fewer reasons to worry. Now, this one, I want to believe, but I don't believe. this one, I think you can pretty much throw away if you look at the Verizon data breach report, which said that like something like 80% of breaches last year happened because of credential, either theft or reuse or whatever. So it's all about passwords still. I don't think that's magically going to disappear in 1 year.
No, and organizations are still going to absolutely care about like the passwords. Like if you're working as a blue teamer and you have passwords that get compromised and you have any sort of like customer base out there, those customers are going to contact you and go, hey, what's going on with all of these usernames and passwords involved? And you can't really turn around and say, well, Kaspersky says like, there's not anything to leak in these usernames and passwords. That's not going to assure customers.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, I think they're close to the mark with this, and multiple people in chat have brought up the whole concept of passkeys. Passkeys are essentially like passwordless authentication based on device. I will say, like, based on me being very plugged into the world of leaked credentials in general, I think they missed the mark. I do think we are kind of moving away from like big data breaches of credentials being impactful. Like, I don't think today, if a company is breached, like, I don't know, let's say Google, if all the Gmail account passwords are disclosed in bcrypt, it's not going to be that big of a deal it's going to be, we're going to talk about it and all that stuff. But for the average person, it's not going to be a huge deal because there's already MFA enabled on all Google accounts. There's already, or whatever, there's all these compensating controls. And if they're bcrypt, you're only going to be able to go after a tiny chunk of them at a time. And like the only passwords, probably sub 8 characters, are going to be essentially overall data breaches of central companies going outbound are less impactful. But when we're seeing Stealer logs, this is hugely impactful and still increasing in impact, in my opinion. And people are asking about passkeys. People are asking about essentially credential. The word of credential means more than one thing. I haven't personally seen a Stealer malware that steals passkeys, but if someone writes one, it's going to be able to steal your passkeys and get in, just like if it was stealing your password.
And so, now there's a one out there.
Yeah, like it's the same thing as like stealing session tokens, which is really what they're going after. If you sign in with a passkey or a password or your face or your secret phrase or whatever it is, if I steal your session cookie and the provider doesn't have session identity detection or prevention capabilities, I'm getting in no matter how you got in. So I think it's like, again, they kind of missed the mark. Passkeys are increasing in. That's good. I think like it does reduce the data breach angle a little bit, but at the end of the day, that's only a tiny chunk of the leaked credential or, whatever you want to call it, the data breach economy. It's a tiny piece of it. So
no one would
anyway. And yeah, Griffin brings up a good point, which is that too many sites don't have MFA capabilities at all, let alone passkeys. Dude, it's like
this gets me so much about banks, right? Like most banks won't even let you do, like they only do
secure
SMS.
MFA. Yeah, it's always SMS.
It pisses me off so much.
Oh, it's so bad. And like, there's also, we talked about it last week, the MFA wall of shame. Some companies paywall their SSO providers. It's like you can't have that and be like, oh, we love passkeys. The companies that are talking about loving passkeys are not the ones to worry about.
And password managers too. Like I thought, Wade, you were going to say like there are some financial institutions that like they don't allow like the username and password to be like copied from a password manager.
Oh, that too.
Password manager that's like, hey,
that bugs
let
me
me
so
fill
much.
this password in for you. It's like no, the bank's like no, you have to like.
You have to type it out
over, and it's like, guess what happens to the strength of your passwords then? So
yeah. Exactly. All right. Well, on that, I guess we won't make it all the way through the Kaspersky article, but
there was only one more thing.
Yeah, one more. All right, let's do one more. Advancing privacy through the rise of it. Yeah, I mean,
assistant bots. Yeah.
This is the painfully self-aware AI that wrote this.
Yeah.
It thinks it's really important. The AI that wrote this thinks it's very important. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with this, but I think we're still in a theoretical attack phase for all of this. Like, no one has demonstrated a real impact of privacy or security impact of this. Like, there's an interesting like research proof of concept of disclosing AI training data, And there's the whole ethical debate about what AI should be trained on. We've talked about that. But like, to my knowledge, and I'm sure we'll talk about it on the show, so stay tuned, there's no record of a privacy concern or a privacy like impact that's been demonstrated real world from AI, right?
Well, not yet, but there are a lot of, I see this growing. I actually dealt with this today as like just vendors that are just sort of like, hey, if you have problems configuring this, we found that ChatGPT is really good at writing this for you. And I'm like, no, don't start encouraging customers to reach out to ChatGPT for help writing queries
default configs,
writing configs for their security products. Like, no, if you're going to use AI, it needs to be self-contained and not just I'm having this is generating errors. Let me put this in ChatGPT because that's what the support team says. So that's where I think AI is going to start running into a problem. So you go, I don't know how to do this, so yeah, let me ask ChatGPT for configuration, then you start leaking information that way.
I think it was at CES that AI handheld questionnaire. Like, did anybody else see that? Like, it didn't have a scroll wheel. It had like a tumbler. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like an AI personal assistant. It's made by some Chinese company. It looks like a straight up Pokedex from Pokemon. And all it is it's not a phone. It's not anything else. It's literally just connects to their AI in order for you to ask
I use a magic 8-ball.
Of course you do. Where is it on your wall? Prove it.
Go get it. It's in front of the camera because it's so important. She always has it ready to go.
Right there.
Yeah, I mean, we're out of time. I mean, there's so many more comments I would talk about, but we're out of time. Thanks everyone for coming. Yeah, we'll be around. See you next week.